Hello, I am back and I'm going to read The Return of the Indian. If I can, I've been outside, excuse me. Hope you've been outside today. It's absolutely beautiful. But today we're reading Chapter 8, The Operation. You remember Matron? Brought Matron to life. They got Tommy's surgical bag, and let's see what happened. You're brilliant, breathed Patrick as Omri delicately picked up the tiny object. With his free hand, he overturned one of the boxes in which the plastic figures had been stored, spread Kleenexes on it, and set the bag in the middle. Matron bustled over with a swish of starched apron. She started a little at the side of the battered old bag, but not half as much as she did when she opened it. She fairly reeled back. Are you seriously suggesting that I pull bullets out of a man's back with this antiquated collections of museum pieces? She almost shrieked. Are they so very different from what you use today? Asked Omri desperately. Matron gingerly plucked a tiny hypodermic syringe from the bag and held it up like a dead rat between fingers and thumb. Look at it. Just look, I ask you. Matron, Omri said earnestly, you don't seem to understand. That's all there is. It's the best we can manage. If you can't do it, he'll die. Our friend, please, all we ask you is that you try. Matron gave Omri an enigmatic look. Then she took hold of Tommy's bag and briskly emptied it on the padded table. All sorts of microscopic things came out. The boys could just make out the rolls of bandages, dressings, dark bottles, and instruments packed in flat cases. She examined these very minutely and then straightened up and said, well, of course, this is some kind of nightmare. But even in nightmares, it is my policy to do my best. Omri and Patrick clutched each other. You mean you'll do it? If you can provide me with an operating table, a bright light, some disinfectant, and a strong cup of tea. Omri could and did provide all those things. By this time, it was 1 o'clock in the morning. The whole household was fast asleep. But he tiptoed downstairs and fetched disinfectant, cotton, some clean handkerchiefs, and an electric kettle full of boiling water. He also detached the cap from a tube of toothpaste and washed it out. That was from a mug. Then he made some strong tea with a tea bag and added milk and sugar. He hoped she took sugar. He carried all this on a tray up the stairs very quietly. When he returned to his room, Patrick had fixed up the box as an operating table. Omri's bedside lamp, which had a flexible neck and a 100-watt bulb, his mother had a thing about reading in bad light, had been moved onto the chest. The light shone straight down up on the table, making no shadows. There was Kleenex spread everywhere. It looked very hygiene. Little Bear had already been laid on the table, and Matron, armed with a tiny pair of scissors, was soon cutting up a handkerchief to make a surgical gown for herself and an operating sheet for Little Bear. I shall need an assistant, she said briskly. What about the Indian girl? She doesn't speak much English. We'll see. She looks bright enough. She beckoned Bright Stars, who was already at her elbow. How? She said in a loud voice, and Bright Stars looked puzzled. When I point, you give, Matron went on. Bright Stars nodded intently. You say I do, said Bright Stars. Omri was directed to pour a drop of disinfectant and some of the boiling water into a small tin lid Patrick had priced off a box of candy drops. The water turned white. Matron dropped the instruments in, and after some moments poured off the liquid into another lid. Meanwhile, Omri was dipping up a few drops of tea into the toothpaste cap. Ah, thank you, my dear, she said when she saw it. She seemed quite cheerful now, and she picked up the cap in both hands. It was to her almost the size of a bucket, but she drank most of it at one go and smacked her lips. That's more like it. What spinach is to Pi, 'tis to me. Now then, let's get on with it. If you don't know who Pi is and what she means by spinach, you can Google Pi the cartoon, and you'll see it. The boys saw very little on the operation itself. The light shone straight down on the white-covered table. Matron stood with her back to them, working silently. Every now and then, she would point at something on the tray. Bright Stars would swiftly pick it up and hand it to her. Only once or twice did she fumble, and then Matron would snap her fingers impatiently. For a long time there was not a sound except the occasional stamp of the pony's foot on the clink of metal. Then Matron said, "I do believe we're in luck." The boys had been afraid to come too close. The matron had made them both tie handkerchiefs around their faces and lean forward. One ball went in one side and straight out the other. Missed its lung by a hairbreadth. If you don't understand what a hairbreadth is, you know how thin a hair is, and a breath. Hairbreadth. I'm thankful to say I've patched that up as best I could. Now I'm playing hide and seek with the other one. I think it's lodged against the shoulder blade. Not far in. I think I've got it. Yes! And she made a sharp movement and then held up a minute pair of tweezers. Whatever they held was far too small to see, but the tips were red and Omri shuddered. Matron dropped the bit of metal into the tray with a ping. Suddenly she began to laugh. "Whatever would St. Thomas's surgical staff say if they could see me now?" she gurgled. "Will he be okay?" Omri asked breathlessly. "Oh, I think so. Yes, indeed. He's a very lucky lad. Is your Indian friend. We're all lucky to have found you," said Omri sincerely. And Matron was stripping the wrapper off a large field dressing. "First World War dressings," she was murmuring. "Amazing how they have lasted. As if they were made last week." She indicated to Bright Stars that she should help him apply it to Little Bear's back. Then they bandaged him between them, and after that she wiped her perspiring face on a scrap of cotton. "You can turn the light off now," she said. "Phew! I'm hot." Her towering cow was collapsing like an ice palace, but she didn't seem to care. "Any more tea? What an experience. Wouldn't have missed it for the world. Always thought I could do simple ops as well as any of those fat cats. Oh dear, what am I saying?" And she chuckled again at her own disrespect to professional etiquette. After swigging down another bucket of tea and making sure Bright Stars had some too, she checked Little Bear's pulse, gave Bright Stars some simple instructions, and then said, "Gentlemen, I think if you don't mind, I'd better be getting back to St. Thomas's. Goodness alone knows how they're coping without me. I'm afraid the unthinkable has happened and I have fallen asleep on duty. I will simply never live it down." She shook hands with Bright Stars and then gave her a pat, not on her shoulder, oddly, but on her stomach. "Take care of your husband," she said, "and take care of yourself too." And Bright Stars looked shy. "You'll have a nice surprise for him if he doesn't come too very soon." Then she waved to the boys, straightened her wilted cap, and, hiking up her skirt over her black stockings, clambered back into the cupboard. When she'd gone, Omri watched Bright Stars settling down at Little Bear's side. He was still lying on the table, warmly wrapped up and sleeping soundly. "What does she mean about a surprise?" he asked Patrick, who was yawning hugely. "Oh, come on. Didn't you notice?" "Notice what?" "Her big belly. She's going to have a baby." "A baby? Wow, that'd be great." "Are you nuts?" said Omri. "That's all we need." "Indian women's manage by themselves," said Omri, who read about it. "They don't make any fuss, not like our mothers." "I should think any mother would make a fuss if she had to," said Patrick. Omri was beginning to feel exhausted too, but it seemed heartless to go to sleep. "Do you think we should? Do you think we should go to sleep?" She said he'd be okay. She told Bright Stars what to do. "There's not much we can do anyway. Look, can I just put these cushions on the floor? I'm knackered," and that means tired. In 3 minutes, he was flat out. It took Omri a little longer. He crouched by the chest and stared at Little Bear and Bright Stars. She must be tired too, especially considering. "Do you need anything, Bright Stars? Something to eat?" She raised her tired eyes to him and gave a little nod. "I'll get you something," he whispered. Down he went again. He didn't turn on lights this time. The reflection from the kitchen light could be seen in his parents' bedroom. He had no desire to explain to anyone what he was doing up at such an hour. The light from the street lamp was enough to show him cake, bread, butter. What was that? Something had gone past the window. He seen it out of the corner of his eye. He froze. He could have sworn it was a man's head. When he could unfreeze, he went to the window and looked out. All he could say was Kitsa sitting on the sill, which would have settled the matter, except for one thing. Her head was up, her ears were pricked, and not at Omri, but in the other direction. Omri climbed the stairs with the food, feeling more than a little uneasy. It seemed to him, on reflection, that the head he had seen had shown in the street lamp if it had no hair. Don't forget where he's living. They have the skinheads. So, they're hard people. The next chapter is chapter 9. It's called A Good Luck Piece. If I don't get that read later on this afternoon and upload it, I will try to get to it tomorrow. Take care. Be good to your mamas. Bye.